And our next speaker comes from Germany, Mr. Mario Brandenburg. I just learned in this morning that Germany has the biggest member of parliament what comes to the head count in Europe. And we are honored to have one of the member of parliament from Germany on the stage. And it says here that you are in the Study Commission of Artificial Intelligence, Social Responsibility and Economic, Social and Ecological Potential of the German Member of Parliament. So really interesting to hear or know that such a kind of team exists in Germany. And I think the PC is ready. So warm hands and welcome on the stage, Mr. Mario Brandenburg.
Yes, hello. So let's see if my presentation is there. Not yet. Oh. I'll just start anyway. So yes, unfortunately we have the biggest parliament. We are now up to 700, so only the National Congress of China is bigger. So we definitely have to sort that out, but I guess that's not the topic of the day. So let me just start to say thanks for the invitation and the chance to basically explain what we are up to in Germany and basically how we want to tackle that topic. And I already learned a lot and heard some interesting thoughts, which some of those I share, and with some I'm not that sure, but I guess this is what it's all about, that we have a nice conversation afterwards. So quick words from my side. So Mario Brandenburg, before I was elected to the German Bundestag in 2017, I worked for SAP. So I'm a computer scientist by nature. I studied in Karlsruhe and Ludwigshafen, and I worked in software development, did a bit of consulting, and then switched into sales. So I was in IT basically all my life, and now I'm a member of the German Parliament, which, to be honest, is quite a shift in the people you work with and quite a shift in the mindset. So, and I'm basically in almost every committee which deals with technology. So in Germany you have a committee called the Digital Agenda, which basically has to discuss all digitalization topics. They are taking care of AI. We have a classical committee called Education and Research. They are the ones basically with the biggest budgets and basically giving out the research budgets. For sure, they deal with AI. Yes, and there are my slides, thanks. So they deal with AI. But since this topic is that big that the parliament basically thought, okay, we might not be able to sort it out in our committees, we can do something special. It's called an enquete commission, where basically we got 2 years, and then we need to pass a report with basically recommendations what whatever government, if it's that one, it's a new one, should do right away. Because the idea of that commission, and I will come back to that here and then, is that basically we should agree in common sense. So all the parties we have from left to right should agree on what to do. So you can imagine that this would normally never work if you only use politicians. So it's set up that it's 19 politicians and 19 experts who were nominated from society. So it's researchers, it's startup people, it's economy, there's the church, there's works councils or workers' unions. And basically this really helps to drive the discussion, because we will not end up in the classical political beatings between left and right and being more individualistic and whatever. And so this commission is important, and I'll basically come back to that later. So we heard a lot about the opportunities of AI, and this is basically what we should talk about, or at least what politicians should talk about. I was just listing some stuff. So there is, for example, the field of brain-computer interfaces. They are actually here quite long, but if you add AI to that, they become a different power. So I had the chance to try it in Tübingen. I got my nice glasses on, measuring my brain activities, and the guy said, think something positive, and it said yes there. And I said, do like a mathematical calculation, and it has written no there, because basically these regions were tied to words. And he said, look, this is how we make ALS patients talk again. So we now have 8 regions, which makes like 8 words or 8-bit, and imagine what we did with 8-bit. So that's the cool stuff we should talk about. And the DFKA, so the German Research Center, they basically work on a sensor suit to measure strain from workers to basically enhance processes. You know about exoskeletons, I don't need to stress that for too long. This is basically the stuff we should talk about and we should aim for. So to have a more self-determined life with that technology. We started our commission. It went on for 3 months actually, and we didn't do nothing. We were just arguing what AI is. So there was no progress. And then we started, okay, are we actually asking the right questions? What are we doing here? So we heard some guy explaining it that way and this way. So we never came to a common sense what AI is, because it depends if you're a very rational person, if you are, for example, a philosopher. And I always explain it to people if I stand on a courtyard and they have nothing to do with it, what is it? And I say, it's a tool. So it's just a tool. And if somebody asks you something with AI, try to replace AI with hammer. If it still makes sense, it's a valid question. If it sounds stupid, it's a stupid question. So will hammer help me do this and that? It's a yes-no answer. Will the hammer steal my job? Probably not, but it will do things better, that what you just do is not needed anymore. Will the hammer ever enslave me and start to decide? I don't think so. So bringing it back to a more rational level and explain to people it's just a tool of engineers and computer scientists at the moment, and we're going to spread the tool. And coming back to our so-called enquete commission, we had to break it down because we were absolutely not able to give out recommendations to the government because it was super different. So we split it down into 6 areas, which is AI in economics, AI in health, and AI in state. And these 3 were starting, and the other 3 ones are starting right now. And it's quite funny because if we talk about data, so the results are not yet published, but at least I can share some of it with you. When we're talking about data, it was super different if we talk about economy, which Germany by nature is more or less a decentralized country. So we always ended up with decentralized structures, with interoperability, with all that stuff. While as in health, everybody says, okay, it should be central. You know, that must be somewhere. We need to find whatever results. We were willing to share for health data or to put it somehow central, while as an economy, we were not. And basically the state group, so I need to get some water, and basically the state group, that was the hardest one, because you cannot change your provider. At least you don't want to leave your country. And so this one ended in chaos due to the fact of autonomous weapons and whatever. So that was the hardest thing, because it's not your decision to choose AI or to choose a service powered by AI. It's just there because it's your government. So it was a different story as well. And what did we find out? Why did it become so difficult? Because there were the questions we had basically on that stage all the time. So which negative effects will we have by bias? We heard about it, it's in the data, I absolutely agree, we need to sort it out. And then we often hear the word decision again. So basically, how will these decisions taken by AI influence our life? And basically, it was stressed already. If I say decision, so I don't know, does an algorithm really decide in terms of the meaning of the word? Because I think if somebody decides, responsibility comes with it. And so maybe we use the wrong terminology to convince people, at least in a political dialogue. And this brings me to my personal standpoint that an algorithm does not decide. It still follows an implemented process. Even with machine learning and a neural network, we still feed it with something. We feed it for a reason with a data set. And if this neural network just wants to compare images, we can feed it with cats and dogs or with black and white people. So it's an absolute difference. But the thing is, this neural network does what we want. So there are still no own intentions of that things. They still don't have an own agenda, and they still do not define their goals. All of that stuff is done by us. And personally, I like the idea of thinking that this might happen in super intelligence and whatever, but that's not my political role to stress people with that theoretical ideas. We have to pass laws or avoid stupid laws. So we have to be super rational here. And this is why I'm convinced that it always needs human interaction at some point in the process, and the humans are still responsible. Because I see a danger in the discussion. If we don't make that point clear all the time, there is a risk that we start to hide behind AI, because it's so super easy. So, excuse me for the words, but if we put shit in, there will be shit out. So, and we can say, look, I mean, this thing is biased. It's somehow racist. Yeah, but it's our data. We created it. It was our life. So there must be a problem with us. And I see this in political discussions, that we somehow try to hide behind the technology. And in the end, it's just a mirror. So AI is a mirror of society. And this is why we are struggling with it. So because we now have to think about all the stuff we accepted, but now we have it statistically that we are wrong here. We have it statistically that we have a problem here. And this is why I always want to stress that there is the human somewhere in the process, and someone will still be responsible, because otherwise we can hide behind it, and this is basically not what we can accept as a state. So, brings me to the next question: how should we inform our people then? So should we have philosophical debates? We should have them. On a courtyard, I don't think we should have them. So we should basically try to make them think about it, and as well, so kudos for Elements of AI. I mean, that's perfect what you did. So I hope we'll have it in Germany real soon, because this is actually the way of doing it. Basically letting people know about it, letting people find out about it for their own curiosity, and not because they are punished to do, they have to do, they say your job will be gone. So it has to come from themselves, and then I think we will be successful in that. And to basically allow them, we need more real-world examples. So I've shown the cool stuff with exoskelets and brain-computer interfaces. That's super stuff, but it's relatively far away. So there must be the easy stuff, like, for example, if you do want whatever public service, and it is way faster because it does some auto-completion of your forms. It says, look, this is right or wrong. You don't have to wait for appointments. These are things in ordinary people's lives, and then they might buy in. So they don't go for the cool story that somebody was beaten in Go. That's super fascinating, but it does not really help my mother in their day-to-day life that this thing can play Go. And I'm a techie, so I'm fascinated by it, and I was talking about that all the time, and I realized, depending to the audience, nobody really cared. So if it was a tech audience, it was cheering, and if it were normal people, they would say, yeah, but what's the point? I need another coffee, I need to go. So, and since I'm here as a politician, we really need to think about a different storytelling to make people interested in what's going on, and not basically to tell them what we think is cool. And tell them how to read and work with the examples. That's as well important, because there is no magic in that boxes. They feel like they do make decisions, but they don't. So I give you the example of a calculator. So if you don't know how to do math and you put in 5 plus 5 and there is 10, bam, magic machine. If you know that it is a 5 and a plus and a 5 and it is 10, you would never agree to say, oh, the calculator decided it's 10. No, it just calculated it's 10. And that's the same thing with algorithms. So if we feed them, if we know what to put in, still like other software projects. So I like the point that he said AI is software. There are stakeholders, there are people who want to manage something. And then for sure, at the moment, there is a bit of this black box thing going on in the neural network, but there's research in explainable AI. It will become better time by time, and then people will be empowered to really know and that this is a recommendation, or it even might be to some extent a decision, but then somebody agreed to give that algorithm the power to do so, and then there's still somebody responsible for it. So we are basically back to the discussion of hiding behind AI. And another big discussion we had, and it ended up nowhere, as many political discussions, is if there's a right to use or refuse AI. So that's the human in the loop discussion. So can I say I always want to have human in the loop? That was a good example. The next thing is if I use my navigational system. Like this intersection is presented by Herbert, because I want my human to tell me to go left or right. So, I mean, it's not there anymore. But personally, being a computer scientist, I want to know that I at least can get the algorithmic result as well. So maybe I'm the only colored guy applying in a company of white guys and I don't get the job. So I would feel better if I could get the algorithmic result of my CV to say, okay, look, it's okay. It said I'm not good anyway, because it doesn't know if I'm black or white or whatever. So the problem could still be the human. So as a computer scientist, I would better trust algorithms and statistics if I know which data came in than whatever drunken, depressed, freshly divorced humans. So all the negative stuff we are discussing was invented by us. No machine invented racism and that stuff, it's our invention. So, and we tried to see if we could basically have a right to use this or that, but it ended nowhere. So let's see if we can make progress in that discussion as well. Political implications to come to an end. We need to enable an innovative society. We should not scare our people. We should not over-regulate. That's important to say as a German, because we tend to over-regulate. That's like our national sport. And it's a problem, because if you try to fix theoretical problems, you get theoretical laws and you get confused people. And as long as these things are not claiming power and try to enslave us, I mean, have you ever tried to talk to Siri for more than 2 minutes? There's a long time until we will be the slavery of Siri. So we should not be over-regulating, and that's basically important, coming back to the Enquete Commission, because this means different things when you want to do, for example, business in healthcare, where people are super open to do something like a data donation with their health data, saying, look, I got cancer, I die anywhere, do whatever you want. While as in a business scope, in the Mittelstand, nobody would say, yeah, I just donate my data, I don't really care, give it to somebody. So we need to be super, super sensitive here, and this is basically the task of the Enquete Commission, because we don't think we can get one size fits all, because we don't even, did not yet release the definition of AI, because it's still, even in these little verticals, still too different. And so we are working on that. We need a success monitoring. Our government passed an AI strategy. Even they now admit that it was probably not the best they ever did, because we don't know how to measure. That's the next question. When are we successful with AI? Like, what is success? If China calls and says, you're better, we are done, is that success? Might never happen. If we live the same standard as we have right now, everything is good. Was that a success? We don't know. What is a success? So we should first define what success is, especially as politicians, and then we can go on passing laws and talking about that stuff. Last thing, we think about quality seals. So some of us want to have it. Like if you buy an electronic device, it says it has AAA or it needs that much power. So maybe we can come up with something like privacy seal. We are looking into that, at least in some areas where this would be important. And for sure the discussions about sandboxes to at least start and not kill startup ideas with whatever law I found from 1750. So I saw the 1 minute. It perfectly fits. So thanks for listening and happy to join the discussions with you.